We're now joined by General VP Malik, former Chief of the Army Staff, Indian Army. General Malik, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. First of all, let me get your reaction. You're someone who led the country during the Kargil War. Today, top government sources have said that any future act of terrorism from Pakistan against India will be treated as an act of war, and India will respond accordingly. What's the significance and signal from this statement?
Good evening, Parikshit. I think it's an extremely important grand strategic, military strategic, and a message for military doctrines also. Now, grand strategy is political strategy. I'm referring to that. What we have clearly said that any act of terror on our side of the border will be an act of war, and we do not differentiate between the terrorists coming from the other side and their military. And therefore, our military strategy will be based on this mandate hereafter, which means that we can utilize whole of the nation strategy, our armed forces, all three of them, and even some more if required. They will be free to act as if we are in a state of war. And accordingly, our military doctrine, which has been quite soft while dealing with the terrorists, cross-border terrorism, I think now it will have to be changed because of this mandate which has now come from our political leadership. So it's a very important message for our armed forces. It is an important message for the whole nation, in fact. And I hope this message sinks in the Pakistan army and its leadership.
Could you give us a sense, is this also an indication, as you said, this is grand strategy, telling Pakistan, stop now before things get worse?
Yeah, that's right. And it is also indicative of absolute zero tolerance as far as cross-border terrorism is concerned. And people have to realize now on the other side that they cannot keep denying any acts of the terrorists which they have been breeding for such a long time. We've seen so many incidents in the past, and we have changed our strategy slightly by when we went on the other side of line of control for strategic cross-border act that we did. And also we went to Balakot, but they were not sufficient. This time we have now changed our mandate, political mandate, as well as our strategy. And that is why you see all the actions that have taken place, inclusive of the Indus Water Treaty held in abeyance, and many other types of action that we have taken diplomatically, economically, and Operation Sindoor. Operation Sindoor is just part of that strategy, the grand strategy that we are following. But hereafter, if we had not made it clear, I think in very simple words, it has been made clear to Pakistan that we shall not accept any cross-border terrorism. And if they do it, if they indulge in that, we will position ourselves as if we are fighting a war.
Right. When was the last time, General Malik, that India actually declared an act of war? Currently also, when we are almost in a warlike situation, or we are practically in a warlike situation, the government has not called it so. In our history, in our military history, was there an occasion when India said we are at war? And what is the procedure for declaring war?
Parikshit, last time when we declared a war, I'm using the word declared a war, that was in 1971. After that, the next war that we fought against them was in Kargil. We did not declare a war. And what I also want to tell you is that the definition of war is quite ambiguous. As far as we are concerned, we have been fighting this proxy war now for decades. And then there is a question of limited war. We fought in Kargil, we fought a limited war, limited to a frontage of about 160 kilometers. And again, there also we imposed a restriction on ourselves that we shall not cross the border and we shall not cross the international boundary also. So what we have, today's terminology is a gray war scene. What we are now fighting is a gray war, which is below the full-scale conventional war. And under these circumstances, nobody talks of declaring a war. We just react or we act as we see the kind of a combat situation that arises for us.
Right. Could you elaborate on that, sir? You're saying today we are fighting a grey war, which is below a full-scale war. How has the warlike scenario actually changed? Even right now, we're not looking at ground combat or ground incursions, at least for now. It has been fought in the air through drones. It has been fought in the cyberspace. Yes, Pakistani fighter jets have also intruded into our airspace, but we're not looking at ground-to-ground combat. So when you say that today we are fighting a grey war, not a conventional war, how have things changed?
Yeah, you know, this grey war that I have said, it could also be called a limited war. Because don't forget, at the moment we have not used our navy and we have not tried to cross the border anywhere. So it is still limited war. We still have the capability to do much more, but we are not wanting to escalate it beyond this level. And right from the beginning, we have been declaring that our response has been very measured, very responsible, and non-escalatory. So when you are doing this kind of fighting, then it comes under the, I would say, the definition of either a limited war or a grey war. And today we are not utilizing our full resources, our capabilities. As I told you, Navy is still not really got involved in the war, and nor we have taken any action to cross the border if we need to. We have those capabilities, but we have declared ourselves that we are not interested in doing that unless we are forced to escalate from their side. At the moment, as we see it, that all the actions right from the beginning, the actions starting from in Pahalgam massacre, now all that has been very, very provocative and escalatory. But as far as we are concerned, we just want to respond to that. We do not want to escalate it further. That is where I'm counting it, that it is below the conventional war.
Right. But I would like to also speak to you about the briefing that was addressed to by the Army and the External Affairs Ministry earlier today. They said that Pakistan is moving troops to the border, which is a concerning sign of escalation. At the same time, Pakistani fighter jets, they have entered our airspace. There were dogfights. They were engaged by our forces successfully. When you do things of this kind and also fire high-speed missiles, does this in any way indicate that Pakistan is backing down, or do you feel that things are going to escalate from here on?
I believe that it depends on the appetite of Pakistan Army and its leader. You know, they are a beleaguered army, having failed in Balochistan, KPK, and not very popular because of Imran Khan factor. But they have a very ambitious and radicalized leader in General Munir. So it really depends on that appetite of the Pakistan Army. They want to improve their image within Pakistan. And of course, General Munir has his own personal ambitions also. Also, it depends on how they react to international pressure which will start coming. They have a problem of economy. They have a problem of not having adequate resources, both military as well as non-military. And now it depends on how they come under the pressure from the foreign countries also, because the international community has already started telling them that, look, de-escalate. The de-escalation will have to start from that end, from the Pakistani end. As far as we are concerned, we are prepared to escalate if they continue to provoke us and if they continue to escalate.
Right. That, of course, is an important point, sir. You're saying that de-escalation has to stop now from the Pakistani end. Look at the kind of attacks, the drone attacks that have happened. Drone attacks in multiple locations. There were 36 locations along the line of control on the international border where there is very heavy firing taking place, where there is where we're seeing intrusions from the Pakistani Air Force as well. What does Pakistan want to do now? What we saw possibly 2 days ago, when there were about 300 drones which crossed into the Indian side, we were told by the armed forces and the MEA that it seems that these drones were on a reconnaissance mission to do surveillance, to gather intelligence and gain a sense of what India will do in response. Now we've been told that you've got drones which are entering Indian territory. These are kamikaze drones. These are Turkish drones with heavy payloads. You clearly want to inflict damage. There has been damage caused to heavily populated residential areas in Amritsar. So when now you shift your strategy, are we now entering what you call possibly a decisive period of this conflict?
May not be yet. Mind you, as I said, that in response to what happened in Pahalgam on 22nd of April, our response was quite measured, and we only hit 9 targets where the terrorists were being trained and being supported and indoctrinated, including the 2 headquarters, one in Bahawalpur and the other one in Muridke near Lahore. Now, they were the ones who responded in a different manner. And Pakistan Army started not only hitting civilian targets, not only along the line of control, but even farther away inside our territory. And apparently, this was an escalatory step that they had taken. Now, in order to respond to that escalatory step, we took further action from our side, which was a one notch higher. We have sent our message, and we have also sent not only on the ground, but verbally also we have conveyed it to them. And that message has gone that if you escalate, we are prepared to escalate. At the moment, they have only used either the drones or missiles and aerial combat. And we have responded accordingly. But we have tried to, since they have hit our military targets, we have also hit some of their military targets. Now, whether they want to continue the aerial actions or continue firing their missiles in our territory, or they want to cross the border somewhere to surprise us and to capture some of our territory, so that our next action will depend on that. But I can assure you that we are now ready in all respect. Whatever they do, we will be able to do one notch higher if they have not yet got the message. But it also, as I said, it depends on the appetite and the kind of image making that the Pakistan Army wants to do within their own country, in their domestic audience in Pakistan.
Right. General Malik, I'm going to take a short break, but I'll request you to stay with us. We're discussing a very important moment since the Pahalgam attack. Very important moment in Operation Sindoor. This could be a turning point in the current tensions. Either we're going to see a stop or possibly things will escalate from here on. We'll be right back with you, sir, after a break. We're now joined by General VP Malik, former Chief of Army Staff. General Malik, thank you for joining us on the program today. Let me once again ask you about India's statement, which came in from top government sources. And this would come after the Prime Minister's meeting with NSA Ajit Doval, General Malik, also with Defence Minister R.K. Singh and 3 service chiefs. The fact that top government sources are saying this is a considered opinion. Now, when we say that you have to declare a war, we have been reading various reports, sir, and probably you can throw some light on it. Does the cabinet have to approve the declaration of war? According to many reports that we read, that finally it is the President of India, as the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, he has to declare war on the advice of the Council of Ministers and the Prime Minister. Would that be the right way, sir?
Parikshit, there is no norm for declaring a war. That whole concept is now over. And the kind of conflict situation that are taking place, not only between India and Pakistan, but all over, there is no declaration of war. But you start responding to the kind of combat situation or conflict situation that you are placed in. And I just want to recall that even during the Kargil war, we did not declare a war, and yet we took all the actions. That is one part of it. And that is what we are doing today also. In my view, in today's context, there is no need for anybody to start declaring a war. The second aspect that I want to mention is that our executive authority is under the Prime Minister. And the President is more for ceremonial purposes, although the President is the Commander-in-Chief. But the executive authority under the Prime Minister, they only need to keep the President informed. Now, in the executive authority, we have a committee of CCS, which is the Cabinet Committee of Security, headed by the Prime Minister. And it has 4 ministers: the Defense Minister, Foreign Minister, Finance Minister, and Home Minister. And they are the ones who take a decision. Now, apparently, this declaration was done by the Prime Minister. He would have got it okayed, or he would have discussed it with his colleagues in the CCS. And then he made a very important statement that any cross-border terrorism will be considered as an act of war. And when you use the word act of war, it opens up the kind of conflict scenario that we face, in which we can use any of our national assets, including the military, beside the diplomatic as well as the economic asset. And it gives much greater freedom to the armed forces to do the actions. Now, the main thing is that this has become necessary because now we have realized that terrorism has absolutely no tolerance as far as we are concerned. It's a zero, and we will not differentiate between the so-called terrorists who in any case function under the Pakistan military. So any action by the Pakistan military or their proxies of Lashkar-e-Taiba or Jaish-e-Mohammed will be considered, any cross-border terrorism will be considered as an act of war, and we will react accordingly.
Right. I would also like to ask you, sir, that today we are seeing a situation where India is also attacking multiple air bases in Pakistan, including an airbase very close to Rawalpindi, which is the headquarters of the Pakistani army. There is bound to be a reaction from the Pakistani side for that. General Munir cannot keep quiet. It'll be embarrassing for him to keep quiet or walk away from this. Having said that, is there now any surprise element in this grey war that we're seeing?
Yes. Look, we started engaging their Air Force assets and other missile assets only because they did it. Again, they took the initiative and they escalated, and then we responded accordingly. So they tried to cause damage, and we've suffered some minor damage here and there, but we have also been able to, thereafter, we have done more damage to them. They do not have much of a capacity. Our effort has been to reduce their capability to wage a war. And that's what we have done. Now, it depends on the mindset of the Pakistan Army, and particularly the Pakistan Army chief. If they want to escalate it, so be it. We are prepared for it. And we will again perhaps retaliate with one notch higher. Let's not forget that our capability compared to their capability is almost about 9 to 10 times much more. And they have to realize this. So let's see what will be the, where will they stop or where they want to stop. The de-escalation has to start from them, and that they have very many reasons to do so, but it depends on the kind of mad mindset that their leadership at the moment is following.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you so much, General Malik, for joining us. Clearly, we are in a very sensitive situation, very tense situation. Our thoughts and prayers with the armed forces. And as you said, the message from the Prime Minister's office, from the government today, that any future act of terrorism from Pakistan will be treated as an act of war and will be responded accordingly, will be a morale booster for our armed forces. It is a shift in our policy vis-a-vis Pakistan. Thank you once again, sir, for joining us on the program.